Well, for more on that story, we're now joined by Mike Graval, who is a former U.S. Senator who joins us on the line from California. Mr. Graval, as always, thank you for joining our broadcast. Now, how is the China-U.S. dynamic changing, especially with China's economic growth year after year increasing much more than that of the U.S.?
What's really going on is Americans, and I'm talking about the American people, not just the leadership, have to understand that we must accommodate to China's viable global interest. They are becoming a global power economically. They have not chosen to become a global power militarily, which is very significant. And so it's grossly unfair for Americans to really look at China with great suspicion. Keep in mind, China has a past that is as glorious as one could find in human history. And it's only the last 200 years that has fallen under. It's shook that off, and now it's burgeoning with the Industrial Revolution and market economics. And I would predict that over time they will become more democratic as they become more prosperous and more secure. But most Americans don't appreciate that they have probably 1,000 riots a year. When you have almost 1 billion people that are out there in poverty and trying to improve their lives, this is difficult to manage. And we are not if we had that many riots in the United States, we'd become a total tyranny. And so we're quite unreasonable in many of the demands we make on China, and I think they have conducted themselves admirably well in the world community. They are obviously after their own enlightened self-interest, but that's what all people do.
Right now, on the issue of rights, which you touched upon just slightly there, Obama was criticized as being soft previously. How do you judge him based on whose trip?
Well, first off, soft on human rights. He's terrible on human rights. We have Julian Assange, who's being persecuted by the world power of the United States to stop WikiLeaks. We have Bradley Manning, a PFC who has more integrity than the generals and the president on the subject of the Constitution, is being held in solitary confinement. So I think, and for a country that has bought into torture and unlimited detention, I don't think the United States has a prayer of being able to offer its advice on the subject of human rights to anybody in the world.
Right, so then looking at this trip generally, what, if anything, of significance has been achieved in what was such a hyped-up trip?
Well, it was hyped up in the confrontation the United States leadership is split. Half of it is very bellicose towards China, and that was under Bush, and the other half seeks an accommodation, but nothing more than that, because we're locked into this American imperialism where we think we're superior to everybody in the world. And of course we're not. And China is going to demonstrate that in the next generation as they move parallel to us and ahead of us. Because here, the best example is we spend $1 trillion a year on our defense, on military capability. Makes us a superpower of the world military-wise. China only spends 10% of what we do. Now, that means they're putting their money where it counts, in education, in bringing the poor elements of their society into into economic productivity. They have a lot of problems, much more difficult problems than the United States has. And right now, we have problems because we act so ridiculously in the world community of nations.
All right, we'll have to leave it there for now. That was Mike Graval, former U.S. Senator, joining us on the line from California. Senator, as always, we appreciate your comments here at Press TV.